Mananasi'Ju'us, half a day, everybody who's here. The Committee on Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagatnya Revitalization, Self-Determination, and Regional Affairs now convenes this public hearing. Public hearing notices were given to the media. The first notice was sent out on Tuesday, July 2nd, 2019, and the second notice was sent out on Sunday, July 7th, 2019, and Monday, July 8th, 2019. For the record, today is Wednesday, July 10th, 2019, and the time is now 8:15. On the agenda attached to the notices that were sent out for this morning's public hearing include the following: a confirmation hearing of Judith S. Flores to serve as a member on the Board of Directors for the Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. Following that, we will move on to Bill number 152-35 COR, introduced by Tina Rose Munya-Barnes and myself, an act to repeal Article 4 of Chapter 50, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, to add a new Article 2 and a new Section 3103H, both to Chapter 3, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporations, otherwise known as PBS, Guam PBS. I thank the speaker for joining me today. She is the vice chair of my committee, and her presence is very important. She has had long-standing relationships with both Judy Flores, who is here today, and with PBS. So she will have a lot of important contributions to provide. The general rules for the public hearing. The conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of the sign-up sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes, unless it's the candidate's personal testimony. Then we want to hear all of it. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, as may be desired by the members of the panel. When you speak, please make sure the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name clearly into the microphone for the record. We will now begin to hear testimonies on the confirmation hearing of Judith S. Flores to serve as a member on the Board of Directors, Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. We have 2 people here to provide testimony, so Sijuas Maasi, both of you, for coming here this very early morning and fighting the traffic that I know that is out there. So if we could have at the table Ms. Judy Flores and Ms. Jackie Balbus, who is the acting head of CAHA. I want to remind those testifying that before you speak, please make sure the microphone is on and that you clearly speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We will begin with Ms. Jackie Balbus.
Mananasi'Ju'us, Madam Chair and Vice Speaker Barnes. It's going to be short and sweet. I do plan to submit written testimony in support of Dr. Flores' appointment to the CAHA board, but I just wanted to say a few words. Dr. Flores would be a valuable asset to the CAHA board. She served on the board many years ago, but she also served as the folk arts coordinator when I first started at CAHA. So through my career, I've seen all of Judy's contributions and her impact on the community. I mean, the traditional arts has really flourished. All the masters and the ma'amko that deserve recognition. I think a lot of it was based on Judy's programs at CAHA too as well. On a personal note, I just like to say that she's impacted my life too. I mean, I've learned a lot from Dr. Judy, and I hope that I can continue to learn more from her, and she would be a great asset to our board. Sijuos Maasi.
Sijuos Maasi for that. Did you have any question, or shall we move on to? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Ms. Flores. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand this over to my vice chair, the Speaker Munya Barnes. I'm working on a community project right now, and as you mentioned, Ms. Flores is a wonderful asset for the community. She has decades of experience to offer. And in that light, we've been working on this community project together. So I will recuse myself to a degree and hand it over to the speaker to continue this part of the hearing.
Sijuos Maasi, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity as your vice chair to facilitate the confirmation hearing for Dr. Judy Flores. Manana Sijuos and T. Judy, before you read your presentation into the record, I just want to say that it is truly a delightful pleasure and honor to be listening, to be accepting your oral testimony into the record. I want to say with all the years of experience and what we continue to work with from a policy-making perspective, the wisdom and the work that you do for our community is greatly, greatly appreciated. So at this time, I will afford you the opportunity to share your presentation, and then we'll go ahead and proceed with questioning. Consigue mo na por favor, Señora Auntie Judy.
Manana Sijuos.
Manana Sijuos.
I will go ahead and read my testimony. Just prior to that, I would like to acknowledge the kind words that everybody so far has said. Indeed, the project that Kelly and I are working on is so exciting. We had the display of the banners and presentation this past Saturday at the university regarding the LATI, and I am very excited about this project. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Jackie, whom I remember as this brand new, enthusiastic employee so many years ago, and I'm so proud to see her still here. And she has gone through major changes as CAHA has progressed, and due in large part to her, I think CAHA is in a very good position today. So thank you, Jackie. I will go ahead and read my testimony. Hafaday committee members, I'm honored to be considered to serve as director on the CAHA Board of Directors. As my bio shows, I've served in this capacity from 2013 to 2016, when CAHA was planning for our hosting of the 12th Festival of Pacific Arts. My term ended just prior to FESPAC, but as co-chair of the Traditional Arts Committee, I continued to work to support our artists throughout the festival. Chamorro history, culture, and art have been my interest and passion since moving to Guam as a child with my teacher parents in 1957. I'm very familiar with CAHA and their hardworking staff since my days as folk arts coordinator for the agency from 1985 to 1995. As a CAHA board member, I believe I can contribute my knowledge of Chamorro folkways, ability to speak the Chamorro language, and years of experience helping to promote traditional and contemporary arts. Swetidzu na tauto gilaugu, sa mapoksaidzu gisengsong inalahan disti 11 años edatu. Malago o pago para bay naitati palo na tiningo zan experiencia ni ma impatizu ginin imanamko zan imangatsongho git tempun kahuloko. So this is my testimony, respectfully submitted to the committee.
Dr. Flores, and at this time, Senator Marsh, do you have any questions for the appointee?
Hungin, you mentioned that CAHA has been evolving over the years, and we too notice Jackie Babas's involvement, and she has great institutional memory. She's been there for such a long time and has been such a key part of CAHA all this time. So we also are very appreciative of the fact that she's there and look forward to many more years, hopefully. But with that evolution and the changes that you see in the world around us, how indigenous movements are moving along, or how artistic movements are moving along, are there any thoughts that you have as a board member, something that you'd like to promote within the board, any changes that you think would be good to see, or just a particular part of the work that CAHA does that you are thinking about focusing on?
Well, of course, my passion is the history, the arts, and the culture. But CAHA is much more than that, and we have to keep in mind that CAHA, as a part of a federal agency under the National Endowment for the Arts, we are mandated to address all the community. So we must keep that in mind, and I think Jackie and the staff have done this, followed through with this very faithfully, and I think we will continue to maintain that balance of course, addressing our indigenous culture, because where else can we be tomorrow, but at the same time acknowledging and respecting and promoting the cultures of those who have made Guam their home.
So Ma'asi for that. And an important point to emphasize as you note. One of the things I wanted to provide is just a little bit of an opportunity to discuss some of the work that you have done. I think that you're a very good balance. You're an artist, so you live some of that life yourself and understand the opportunities, but also the challenges that artists on Guam have. You've been part of revitalizing and contributing to Inalahan to keep it as a viable community when so many changes are happening in the world. But also you do academic work. So I think that you bring together all of those very different but important aspects. So I wanted to provide you a few moments just to talk about your dissertation a little bit, because I believe it was looking at the evolution of art on Guam, but if you could clarify that for us.
Yes, to give you a little history for the record, I was the first folk arts coordinator for CAHA, and I started in 1985, and I had the best job in the world. It was to identify, promote, and document the arts and the artists of Guam. So in this capacity, of course, I knew a lot of the traditional artists in the southern part of the island, but I had the opportunity to sit with and enjoy the wisdom and the skills of our traditional artists here. So that was where we started, and the evolution or the renaissance that has happened after or during those years is amazing. I was promoting the traditional arts as what remained from our indigenous culture, infused by Spanish colonization. So I was promoting such things as coconut leaf weaving, pandanus weaving, Belambotudzen, thanks to Mr. Jack Lujan, the blacksmith traditions, those things that people my age think of as traditional Chamorro culture or practitioners. But during my time in Kaha, one of the most vivid things I remember is I was promoting, my job involved organizing events and festivals that would promote the traditional arts. And in about 1980, 88, 87, I started seeing this dance group that was like nothing any of us had ever seen. And it was the Taitano dance group started by Frank Rabone. And I was impressed because I could see that it was a grassroots movement. It was something that was not going to go away. It was definitely something that people were passionate about. And this was looking back to the pre-colonial culture and trying to figure out where the Chamorros came from. So to get some guidance, my mentor at the time, I was under contract directly with NEA, Traditional Arts. My mentor was the late Bess Hawes. So in those days, we didn't even have email. We had to write, a letter and say, this is what's happening, and I'm excited about it, but how do I present it? It's something that came up, and it's not traditional in our time. And this wise lady wrote back, 2-3 weeks later, and she says, present it for what it is. Promote it, present it for what it is. So that's kind of the way I've continued to do, to create policy or to do things with this Renaissance. Present it for what it is. People are passionate about discovering who they were. They are interpreting in their way, the way they, from a contemporary viewpoint, they're interpreting what they think they might have practiced in the ancient times. So I did when I went back to, I left Kaha in 1995 to go get my PhD. And I had already completed my master's degree at the University of Guam, and that's where I started documenting this Renaissance. So my master's thesis and my PhD thesis both document and give the theory, according to the academics, why this resonance is happening, this Renaissance, and just recording the different genres that I saw coming. So that was my thesis. From that, I came home and decided, at that time it was strange because before my time, you went off, you got your PhD, you came back, you automatically had a job at UOG. Well, times had changed, and there were no jobs at UOG. So I worked as an adjunct professor for another 5 years teaching the history of Guam, because during the course of my research, of course, I knew a lot about the various historical eras in Guam. So I thought about my other skills that I had, and we had started Gefpago in the village of Inalaha, and I had helped people start that in 1992 was the official opening. And they needed help, so I applied for a variety of grants. I got grants from the local sources, from GVB and from Kaha, but I also tried an application at the Administration for Native Americans, which is ANA, and I received a 3-year grant for about $300,000, and that was really what was able to help us get Gefpago and on the road, and to do some meaningful programming. And that's the thing I think that people need to remember is you need to assess the community to know, first of all, what they want. It's not what I want. You need to observe and see what the community wants. And then in the federal grants, they are their aim is to get programs out there. So although there were residual benefits to having these grants, it was all programming, and I love programming. So we had yearly events. Dinanya Minago started during those times. We were able to do apprenticeships with the various practitioners, and the list goes on. So that's just a snapshot of some of the things that I've been doing during that 20-year period in GEFPAGO.
So Duas Masi for that. I think it's so important that you shared all of that. It is a quick snapshot because you've been so intricately intertwined with our local communities and our local movements for art and the culture for so long. And it helps people understand the deep level of experience and understanding that you potentially bring to the table to serve as a board member for KAHA. So Duas Masi, Speaker, for allowing me to ask a couple of questions.
Wen Pubetsu, Madam Chairperson, for your questioning and for your comments. I too want to take this time to extend an undonkluna si Duas Masi, Auntie Judy, for literally stepping up to the plate to be a part of the Board of Directors for KAHA. Again, I want to take the time to extend my thank yous to our governor and our lieutenant governor for truly sending this sandy blonde history, the hair, just everything about Chamorro embedded into her heart. Who would think that 60-some years later, she will continue to advocate to preserve who we are as island people? And I just want to say that they couldn't have sent a better appointee. I'm looking at your publications and presentations, from the Ancient Chamorro Arts presentation that you've done, for advocating women in art, for literally sharing the story in Alahan, for being a part of the Hadza cultural heritage, for working closely with Taitano, for doing anything and everything about capturing the true picture of Inalahan, to your family who continues to work off island to promote the Chamorro culture, to bring the identity of our Chamorro people to millions that will visit Balboa Park, a project that you haven't given up on, helping people, Chamorros that are away from home and trying to make a home away from home for our Chamorros. Dr. Judy Undonkaluna Duas Masi, as I was growing up, working closely with your niece for over 15 years, it was always Auntie Judy for all of us. And I want to say that you continue to give back, you continue to write, you continue to promote, you continue to advocate, you continue to enrich, you continue to teach. There's so many things. We could write a book on all the work that you've done, but you've always been so humble about it, always wanting to write more about our people. So I truly will ask the chair if I could be given that opportunity to help expedite this appointment for you, but more importantly, to get a unanimous support, because it is because of people and folks like you, the beauty that you have to share about our island people and the hospitality that we bring to the rest of the world, that you are truly Chamorro at heart. And I want to say, si Duas Masi, si Duas on Binidisi, and as I tear because of the love that I have for you, I know that the people of Guam will always have history to remember because of the expertise that you share in your heart to the rest of Guam. Si Zusum binidisi ho, Auntie Judy and Jackie, thank you for being beside her as one who worked under her, but more importantly, never forgetting that the teachers before you, you are now in a position to share, say, I've learned from here and I'm here to continue to support the learning she's provided. So what a true blessing. Thank you for giving us that honor, and thank you again for never stopping and being up at the forefront to support and advocate Chamorro. Si Zeus Masi and Sana Masi, Auntie Judy.
Sana Masi.
Sijuas Masi, Speaker, your speech was so passionate that you moved me to tears as well. So, if there is anyone who has not yet testified who wishes to testify, being none, this committee will conclude the nomination hearing for Judith S. Flores, Dr. Judith S. Flores, to serve as a member on the Board of Directors, Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. Sijus Masi for being here today, and we look forward to the continuation of your nomination as it goes through the process.
Hugwai Zahao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The committee will continue to receive testimonies for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on the Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagåtña Revitalization, Self-Determination, and Regional Affairs, and submit it via email to office.senatorkelly@guamlegislature.org. Or you can have it delivered to my office, which is located at the second floor of the Guam Congress Building. It is now 8:41, and we'll go ahead and close this and take a few minutes recess to get ready for the next part of our public hearing. We will now begin the public hearing and hear testimonies for Bill number 152-35 COR, which is authored by Speaker Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes and myself as co-sponsor. It is an act to repeal Article 4 of Chapter 50, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, to add a new Article 2 and a new Section 3103H, both to Chapter 3, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation, also known as Guam PBS. To restate the committee's general housekeeping rules, the conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order that they have signed in. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. Written testimonies shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying if there is anybody out there who still wishes to submit. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, please remain at the table so that the members of the panel are able to request for additional comments or convey comments on your testimony. When you speak, please make sure the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. And please begin with stating your name for the record. I want to ask Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes, who is the author of the bill as well as the vice chair, so I thank her very much for being here today. She is the vice chair of my committee. But as the author of the bill, I wish to hand it over to her so that she can carry out this public hearing.
Si Diyos Masi, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak about the introduction of Bill 152-35 COR, and I will share with the body and the listening audience that this bill will place the Guam Film Office under the jurisdiction of PBS Guam. The Guam Film Office has been in our books for nearly a decade, as we had noted earlier, without any movement. And we, from an agency that exists today, working many years prior to that to try and implement and create a film office, after its passage, it was very hard to get implemented because it wasn't set as a priority. We hope that through this effort today that we are able to reinvigorate and re-synergize the Guam Film Office. There are no big changes that has been made to the legislation. The language is still the same. And I want to thank both the Guam Economic Development Authority, GITA, and PBS, also, formerly known as KGTF, for helping me in this legislation and those who have put their input into this bill. And Madam Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least take the time to acknowledge that the Guam Economic Development Authority was here earlier. They had a 9 o'clock meeting that they could not miss. So if I may, I'm just going to read Ms. Melanie Mendiola's statement for the record, and also thank Mr. Ed Camacho, who is a part of the office, for being here this morning. So if I may, public hearing testimony of Melanie Mendiola, Chief Executive Officer, Administrator for Guam Economic Development Authority, July 8, 2019. It says, Hafaday, Chairman Kelly G. Marsh Taitano, and members of the Committee on Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagåtña Revitalization, Self-Determination, Regional Affairs, and thank you for allowing the Guam Economic Authority to present testimony in support of Bill number 152-35 COR to transfer the Guam Film Office to the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation, PBS. As you recall, Public Law 31-159 was enacted in 2012 and established the Guam Film Office under the auspices of the Guam Economic Development Authority. Since that time, Gita has dedicated time and efforts to research similar film offices in both national and international locations and has prepared early proposed drafts of rules and regulations for the Guam Film Office. Since the change in administration, the following activities have occurred. Gita management met with Speaker Munya Barnes' office on January 17, 2019. Names were provided to impanel the Film Office Committee. In the weeks that followed, the Gita office reached out to the individuals recommended but were unsuccessful in impaneling the group. Concurrent with this, we extended the research to include Asian countries as comparable film destinations, as prior research was primarily centered on U.S. jurisdictions. A second round of attempts to impanel the commission was made in late March or early April of 2019. But around the same time, we were approached by the Speaker's office to transition the duties of the Film Office to the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation. A transition planning meeting was held on April 15, and following this meeting, Gita provided the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation and the Speaker's office with an update with the research summary and a draft of rules and regulations. We support this transition to the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation to assume management of the Guam Film Office. Gita sees immense potential in the burgeoning local film industry, and the implementation of reasonable rules and regulations will be a positive first step towards moving the industry forward. As the industry grows and matures, there may be opportunities for Gita to provide guidance and support to the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation and other government entities with regard to potential economic incentives and other programs to foster the growth of the local film studios and production companies. On behalf of Gita, I thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony and respectfully encourages the members of Imina 35 na Legislatura en Guahan to pass Bill number 152-35. At the same time, Gita reiterates its commitment to support government efforts to grow the film industry. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me at 647-4332. Si Juas Maasi, Melanie Mendiola, CEO/Administrator. Madam Chair, thank you for giving me the opportunity to read this statement into the record. To also note to the listening audience and to the panel members here that our office, as one of our commitments to facilitating the film industry moving forward, was to make sure that we had a solid foundation for the implementation, but more importantly, to give it the priority it truly needs as we look at opportunities for providing the new industry, creating new jobs, creating a place and a venue for our experts who have trained and learned here on Guam with the support of nonprofit organizations like GIF. I think that this is the positive way forward because they will truly bring it up to the forefront and implement this industry here in Guam, providing new opportunities for our community to engage, especially those within the high school arena and those in the University of Guam and the programs that it have, to give them a place where they can go to and truly bring their expertise up to the forefront. So, Madam Chair, thank you again, and I really hope that I can get the committee's support on this effort moving forward. Continuing to hear from those in the listening audience who would like to send written testimony to our committee, but more importantly, to try and get this legislation onto session floor after our budget hearings to make sure that we give that a priority so PBS can move fast forward in making this work for Guam. So thank you again for believing in this bill and working closely with me on this, and also working closely with Gita and PBS to make this happen for Guam. Si Diyos Masi. Thank you. So, did you want to go ahead and, do we have the list? Okay. Do we, I do know that we have a list, Madam Chair, and I will go ahead at this time in the order that was provided with the list. Ina Carrillo from PBS, she will be the first to speak in support of. Mr. Don Munya from PBS Guam in support of. Mr. Kel Munya from Guam International Film Festival in support of, and then Naomi Castro Munya, who is going to, who just supports. So, Mrs. Carrillo, you may proceed.
Half a day. Good morning, Chairwoman Marsh Taitano and Vice Chair Munya. I come before you today to offer testimony in support of Bill 152-35, which would move the Guam Film Office created under Public Law 31-159 from its current home at the Guam Economic Development Authority to its proposed new home at the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corp., more commonly known as PBS Guam. There are three primary reasons that I support the passage of this legislation, and I will discuss with you my reasoning and provide you with comments to support my position. The first reason is dedication to the success of the film office. PBS Guam is a small agency dedicated to educating our island's people. We have competent, dedicated employees that will assist the film office by gathering all requisite documents to produce a film on Guam and have them readily available in a single location for filmmakers to easily access. We already have in-house the foremost subject matter expert in Guam's filmmaking industry, Mr. Don Munya, who is the executive producer at PBS Guam. His reputation and expertise will help increase the visibility of the film office and attract filmmakers that either have relationships with Don or those that know filmmakers that have worked with him in the past. The film office was always looked at as an economic driver that would bring in, on the low end, 15 to 30 million additional dollars to our island's economy, according to studies performed by GITA. More importantly, there is a budding independent film community that is just beginning on Guam. Educational opportunities that can come from a successful film office is an unintended bonus that can assist PBS in its mission to help it reach its goal of significantly increasing its locally produced content. Pristine beaches, thick, dense jungle, and beautiful waterways that Guam possesses should be an enticement to both international and domestic filmmakers, but they also have to be aware of the topography and know that there is a resource on island to help scout locations and provide actual assistance in filing critical positions that may be required to produce a film, commercial, or documentary. And we will be able to provide that assistance to prospective filmmakers by pairing them with local experts that they may require. The commitment required to provide all these resources to filmmakers requires a full-time commitment. We need to accurately map the island and have maps that can be accessed by prospective filmmakers so that when they reach out to the film office, we can ensure positive engagement. PBS is committed to the success of the film industry and on Guam and want to facilitate the growth of the film office as well. Education support is the second main reason that I believe PBS should be the home of the film office. With other film offices, filmmakers bring in equipment to film projects and like to have storage in remote locations. They sometimes make arrangements with the film office to store their equipment in exchange for letting the film office rent and use the equipment as part of the agreement for storage. This will allow our island youth to have access to state-of-the-art film equipment and learn its uses and applications, therefore invigorating the film community on Guam. There is no doubt that filmmakers believe in fostering local talent wherever they film to cultivate new talent and grow the industry. Finally, the most important, Guam's rich culture needs to be documented and celebrated and in collaboration with filmmakers from around the world could help us create an even more vigorous tourism market that currently exists. In a report furnished by Gita, it stated that tourism in areas like Scotland, where the film Braveheart was filmed, and New Zealand, where the Lord of the Rings movie franchise was filmed, has seen market increases in tourism numbers after the release of the movies. This would be the ideal situation for Guam, as we rely on a service-based economy that thrives when tourism market is thriving. If our tourism arrival numbers increased, so will the need for hotels, which in turn leads to more jobs and then leads to additional revenue for the government, allowing the government to better serve its residents. Again, I thank you for the support, for the opportunity to present my testimony in favor of Bill 152-35, and hope that you pass this legislation, opening the door for a more successful film industry in Guam. Thank you.
Si Zeus Masi, Mrs. Carrillo. Next on the agenda, Mr. Don Munya.
Hafade.
Hafide.
Guahusi Don Munya. I'm a professional filmmaker, executive producer for PBS Guam, and founder of the Guam International Film Festival. Good morning, 35th Guam Legislature, Honorable Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, and Chairwoman Kelly Marsh Taitano. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and thank you so much for sponsoring this bill. I'm here to provide testimony in support of Bill 152-35 relative to establishing the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation, otherwise known as PBS Guam KGTF Channel 12. My testimony will focus on the much-needed alignment and cooperation of the existing agencies and organization stakeholders of the Guam Film Office, which naturally include Guam Visitors Bureau, Guam Economic Development Authority, PBS Guam, and Guam International Film Festival. My testimony will also focus on justifying the allocation of monies to fund the Guam Film Office, which was left as a low-priority, unfunded mandate for the past 7 years under the Guam Economic Development Authority. To begin my testimony, I would like to read the mission statements of all the agencies and organization stakeholders of the Guam Film Office. Guam Economic Development Authority, established in 1965, GIDA's mission is to develop a sound and sustainable economy through innovative programs that preserve and promote local culture, economic opportunities, and quality of life. Established in 1952, the mission of the Guam Visitors Bureau is to efficiently and effectively promote and develop Guam as a safe and satisfying destination for visitors and to derive maximum benefits for the people of Guam. Established in 1970, KGTF Channel 12's mission is to serve the public's interest by providing the people of Guam with quality entertaining, educational, and cultural programming that informs our island community about the world around us. Lastly, the Guam International Film Festival, established in 2011, whose mission is to provide free film education, promote cultural understanding throughout our communities, and assist in the establishment of a local industry of motion picture. Now, the agencies and organizations just mentioned all share a common goal, which is to educate, promote, and develop Guam's economy, and to preserve and promote the island's culture. Now, during my employment at PBS Guam, I have acquired invaluable institutional knowledge in broadcast television and underwriting from majority of my colleagues. My general manager, Ms. Ina Carrillo, has over a decade of experience in underwriting and sales for professional media. Chief engineer and former production manager of PBS Guam for over 20 years, John T. Munya, and production staff Mr. Rodney Sapp and Shingpi Wang have worked alongside world-class media organizations, CNN, NBC, ABC, South Korean Broadcasting Service, better known as KBS, and NHK World Japan. For decades, PBS Guam has served as an international media support staff and broadcast technology support during many international newsworthy events, such as the Korean Air Flight 801 crash and U.S. presidential visits of President Ronald Reagan and President Bill Clinton. And as we all know, international newsworthy events stimulate media industry activity. Based on a document provided by production supervisor of the most recent Netflix production, Operation Christmas Drop, Wayne Middleton reports, close to $250,000 was spent on hotel rooms alone. An estimate of over $200,000 was also spent on local businesses, and over 50 local individuals were hired as crew. Mr. Middleton estimates total monies invested in Guam was upward to $1 million. It is now a recorded fact, proving there certainly is a budding film industry developing itself on the island. Now, unlike other industry development initiatives on Guam, the industry of film provides the island an opportunity for product export in the form of intellectual properties, not only attracting outside monies by means of international production activity, but also by providing the world a new and authentic cultural experience from original works made by our local filmmakers. In the most recent 2018 Theatrical and Home Entertainment Market Environment Study conducted by the Motion Picture Association of America, Chairman and CEO writes, last year, the combined theatrical and home entertainment market was $96.8 billion, a 9% increase over 2017, and is up 25% from 5 years ago. In addition, there were 613 million subscriptions to online video subscriptions around the world, a 27% increase from 2017. And in home entertainment segment, global consumer spending grew 16% to $55.7 billion, while U.S. spending grew 12%. More than 80% of U.S. adults watch movies and television shows via traditional services, while more than 70% watch via online subscriptions. Now, outside U.S. and Canada, 7 international markets had $1 billion or more in box office sales. In my personal and professional experience in film, I've observed that international audience, including our own local audiences, see Guam film and television productions as subpar, when in actuality, it is the value that is placed upon our artists by our local industry developers that is in fact subpar. Now, what's at stake here is more than just industry development, but a deeper cultural, social, economic issue. One of many examples is the current residency of brother the first ever Chamorro filmmaker, Herman Crisostomo. His brother Manny Crisostomo, a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, currently resides in California, continuing to focus his time, energy, and talents to documenting and supporting the narrative of American traditions, mainly because of the level of industry and educational support for his expertise is undervalued and underserved here on Guam. The lack of support for the media arts industry on Guam correlates to the lack of education provided, causing our wages to be compromised as well. I understand that our wages in all professional industries in Guam have always been below the U.S. national standard, which supports the urgency to expand an already existing film industry on Guam. In time, this potential multi-million-dollar local film industry will help increase professional wages all across the board. Allow us to tell our story. Allow us to earn our living by promoting an authentic representation of our culture in the global marketplace of film and television. The goal is to diversify Guam's economic portfolio, create a new industry of intellectual property export, further develop education and business activity in media, and expand the capacities of all the relative agencies and organization stakeholders of the Guam Film Office with passing of Bill 152-35. Sidzus Masi. Thank you very much.
Sidzus Masi, Mr. Don Munya. Before we proceed with our next presenter, I'd just like to acknowledge that to the listening audience that in the room We have a lot of bright young interns from both the Public Policy Institute from the 35th Guam Legislature, but also from the Institute Learning with the Judiciary. And I want to thank all of them for being a part of listening to this public hearing this morning on an important bill that could bring millions of dollars into our industry alone. So, si Jules Maasi for your time this morning and time being here, and I thank you for being a part of this learning process. Next on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Kel Munya. Please proceed.
Hafaday, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Kel Munya. I'm a film and media educator at the University of Guam. I'm the founder and program director of the Guam International Film Festival and an independent filmmaker. I've dedicated the past 12 years of my life's work as a proponent to the value of film as a viable means of advancing education, culture, art, and commerce here in Guam and throughout the Western Pacific. I strongly support Bill 152-35 relative to establishing the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation. Now today, I would like to speak from three first-hand perspectives. The first is that of an independent filmmaker. I've produced my first feature-length film in 2008 right here on Guam. Because of a lack of film infrastructure, I was forced to establish the local production processes as I went, causing me to take the long way around in terms of time, resources, and processes. Although it has been and continues to be very difficult and inefficient, it has also been fruitful. The culture, landscape, and talent from Guam has propelled the film to be screened in numerous countries to critical acclaim. Since then, the local talent and available technology has grown, but the authority to help has not. It's left a wide gap of inactivity and the need for our local workforce and a governing body to educate and professionalize the efforts and the value of the independent filmmaker within our region, which will then allow them not only the assistance for their own productions, but the capacity to contribute professionally to incoming productions as well. The attention of the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation to the Guam Film Office will help prevent our local creatives from having to leave Guam in order to further their opportunities in film production, thus keeping our talent at home to strengthen the growing industry. The systemic infrastructure for film and keeping intact the integrity of our art and humanities relies heavily on education-based involvement. And the second perspective is that of the program director for the Guam International Film Festival. In this position, year-round, I deal with local and regional filmmakers, as well as film producers, distributors, and representatives from numerous countries across the globe who express interest in international film on Guam. In the span of 40 years, from 1970 to 2011, there have been only 3 notable films, whether partially or fully, produced on Guam. Noon Sunday in 1970, Max Havoc in 2004, and Shiro's Head in 2008. Conversely, after the creation of the Guam International Film Festival in 2011, in the span of just 8 years, from 2011 to 2018, there have been a total of 78 locally produced films screened at GIF. An undeniable indication that filmmakers, creatives, and their sponsors or underwriters have been pushing the medium into a serious, professional tier of industry, exhibiting a strong demand in film on various levels. And within GIF, from 2011 to 2019, there have been a total count of 89 visiting international filmmaking delegates from 11 different countries. That's an average of 10 international delegates per year with an interest of doing business with the Guam film industry. To this day, I continue to receive an average of 2 to 3 requests annually from off-island production companies inquiring about locations, personnel, permits, etc., with an intent to bring off-island production activity to Guam, but with no readily active film office infrastructure in place. they have resulted in missed opportunities. The third perspective is that of education. Since I formulated the first independent filmmaking curriculum at the University of Guam in 2015, the student registration and interest in film courses have increased. The university is committed to their expansion in the future of film education in the Marianas by securing additional resources, funding, and new academic personnel while implementing newly required film courses and educational tracks to secure Guam's foothold in the future of our capacity for film. Over the years, several of my students have gone on to secure film and media jobs in the workforce at local broadcast companies, or have started their own production companies as entrepreneurs, or have even earned employment with global leaders in international film and television production such as NBC Universal, the Golden State Warriors, and Netflix corporate offices in Hollywood, California. Most recently, over the past month, the local production crew members who participated in the latest off-island film endeavor, the Netflix film Operation Christmas Drop, was primarily made up of young skilled workers who started from my classroom and from educational workshops at the Guam International Film Festival. In short, we have the demand by the students and the interest of other countries, but we need an active governing body at the ready to implement the educational processes to work with incoming and local production companies in order to secure the return value with the proper metrics and measure. The benefits of marrying film with education have been evident throughout all world-class film destinations, from Busan to Tokyo to Toronto to Los Angeles. The Guam Film Office, under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation, will have the capacity to readily build and fortify the essential processes necessary for our island's advancement of education, culture, art. I appreciate
Much. I will note for the record, ladies and gentlemen, that we did receive report positive testimony in support of from Gabrielle Kelly. Can I read it into the record because it shows okay. I'll go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and read it into the record. Half a day. My name is Gabrielle Kelly, and I'm a filmmaker and as a writer mentor in the screenwriting producing lab of the Asian Independent Cinema Project in the Philippines. My experience includes screenwriting and producing at UCLA, USC, Chapman University's Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, the Gerasimov Institute of Cinematography in Moscow, London's Performing Arts Labs, the first ever Middle East Sundance Screenwriting Lab, and many others. I am also a former board member of the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, Women in Film, and the Irish Film Festival LA. I'm also a judge and programmer at numerous major film festivals worldwide. My written testimony today is in support of Bill number 152-35, relative to establishing the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation. My connection with Guam began in 2011, prior to the launch of the inaugural Guam International Film Festival, which is GIF. I have happily served on the GIF grand jury panel for the last 8 years, and in that time, I have witnessed growing interest in Guam's filmmaking capacities and its budding film industry, which has earned it that credible standing in partnerships with neighboring Asia-Pacific film communities and beyond. And even though there has been strong interest in Guam's film industry from various countries via organizations such as GIF, the ability to accommodate substantial incoming requests from off-island productions lacks the necessary infrastructure. This act would broaden the scope of the scope of industry reach while providing the skilled personnel to fulfill the processes through an active Guam Film Office. In expanding the options for the Guam Film Office, you are creating a proven industry model beneficial to Guam's workforce, economy, culture, and education. I am a champion of Guam and its festival and receive many inquiries but have nowhere to direct them. In conclusion, I am strongly in favor of the committee to pass Bill 152-35, which establishes the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. And also another short one from Leanne Keir, Executive Director, Pacific Islanders in Communications. To the 35th Guam Legislature, I strongly support Bill 152-35, which expands the creation of the Guam Film Office. This measure is to establish the Film Office in Guam, will provide the tracking of filmic activities in Guam, and will in turn assist in cultural preservation and local job force security. My organization, Pacific Islanders in Communications, had the pleasure of hosting a filmmaking lab this past March. I was delighted to see the film community thriving and the industry growing. With Guam's government able to monitor local and international projects, they will have a better idea of the revenue created by the film industry, and that will also assist with cultural preservation by issuing permission or permits to shoot on state lands and by denying permission for sacred places. They can also require a cultural advisor of specific projects and to be sure that the cultures on Guam are respected and not culturally appropriated for the use that will bring disrespect or shame to the people of Guam. Lastly, with a Guam Film Office monitoring the various projects taking place, they can strongly persuade, if not outright insist, that out-of-state productions hire a certain percentage of local workers and that they have a training plan attached to their project to help build the Guam film industry. Therefore, I respectfully urge the committee to pass Bill 152-35. Sincerely, Leanne K. Kerr, Executive Director, Pacific Islanders in Communications. Madam Chair, we also have testimony breakdown from PBS, and one more. I have one from the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and one from Netflix that was submitted. Mr. Wayne Middleton, who is the production supervisor, Operation Christmas Drop, had a meeting in the Speaker's office July 5th, 2019. He talked about the utilization on the production, Operation Christmas Drop. It talked about how many people were hired locally. He talked about the extras that were needed for the background work. He talked about the dozen of film locations that were shot throughout the island, the estimated hotel rooms, which 4 hotels with an estimated 2,000 room nights, which cost almost over $250,000. The local bank that had to be established for the production. He said dozens of businesses were patronized, and they said that was over $200,000. But he also did an extra note and said $4,000 alone was used to purchase water for the location site. And he said the local rentals for all the production for utilizations of trucks and trailers, and 40 to 50 rental cars, and at a span from 1 to 2 months. He said that the government was very hopeful, and he's talked about the connections between the local folks with the government of Guam, Department of Labor, Department of Parks and Recs, GPD, Guam Fire Department, the Department of Chamorro Affairs, the governor's office, of course, the legislature, in speaking with our office and working closely together, Madam Chair. He did talk about some of the critique and about not being able to have return calls initially for the contracts here on Guam. It took a very long time to work with our Department of Revenue and Taxation to establish the business license. He did say that there was some of the support staff that were not very helpful, and he also recommended about streamlining that process. He said that there was a delay in production equipment that if better negotiated, Guam could see an opportunity to bring more equipment to Guam so that because it is so expensive to import all the technical equipment that it's needed, and because Guam didn't have any, they had to container it in. He did also note, and you may think that it wasn't big, but it was very big for them, was having to work closely with our Department of Public Works to let us know that even as far as the traffic and the roadways and not having the proper demarcations and the painting of the strips for the roadways, and not having enough, not having that proper signage was left for much difficulty. He wanted to say that his personal highlights were that the first shot at the restored Chamorro Cultural Village was a beautiful sight, and that the hard-working crew of the Operation Christmas Drop and the local crew together were very appreciative that the cultural village was beautiful, but more importantly, even the sites like Chamorro Village and the beauty of what we have that's still pristine in the South. And then he made note of something that was very special near to Guam that we are all known for as island people, was he talked about being invited to a birthday party for an 80-year-old Sina, and that the family and friends welcomed him personally, and he said far beyond any place that he's gone around the world, that the people of Guam are the warmest, the friendliest, the most respectful, and the most hospitable. And Madam Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up, because that was an outsider looking from an outside perspective through his lenses, seeing that Guam is truly the paradise that he said it was, and that he wants to continue to do work here on Guam, but that there are some critiques that need to be acted on personally, and that given the opportunities to support the Guam Telecommunications Corporation, PBS, for housing this, he thinks it's a great start, though he did note it that around the world it's usually with the Economic Development Authority. We also have from the University of Manoa, Mr. Tom Brislin, who shares his support and having more than 50 years in the media, which he said for him began in Guam. I am personally and professionally delighted to see the legislative initiative in Bill 152-35 to strengthen the Guam Film Office through placement under the Educational Telecommunications Corporation and through appropriate funding. Film and video productions create a clean industry to help drive a 21st century economic engine, along with a highly achievable economic goal that there are tremendous opportunities for educational impacts through workforce development programs, indirect and supporting skills and services necessary for successful productions. Situating the Guam office in the Educational Development Corporation opens wide possibilities for it to enhance the Chamorro historical and cultural heritage, as well as in contemporary images through educational and cultural consultancy programs for off-island production entities. Encouraging such acculturations is a positive approach to combating stereotypes in authentic characterizations, storages, and images. It gives Guam the voice it has so often been marginalized and minimized, with its narratives as have been told through distant and so often distorted lenses. Although the establishment of the film office by necessity must be heavily front-loaded in terms of appropriation, the long-term payback will be more than worth the investment in economic, educational, and entrepreneurial returns, as well as the celebration of cultural industries. It says Sizos Maasi, Tom Brislin, Associate Dean of the University of Hawaii. Madam Chair, that exhausts the receiving of these written testimonies and was asked to read for the record. And at this time, as I see young interns here, if there was anybody who would like to speak in support of this bill, I open that floor up to you right now. If there's anyone who would like to speak. If not, Madam Chair, I turn the floor back to you in conclusion of this bill 152-35 COR.
Saina Maasi, Madam Speaker, for reading those into the record and allowing all of us to be hearing about the positive support and the need for some improvement in our film industry. So I'd like to mention that I have seen PBS in action. I got to participate in the telethon that they put forth this year, and I believe it had one of the highest donations that they've received for a telethon. And then I also just recently, I think it was just a couple weeks ago, attended a PBS festival that they put on for our island youth. And I must say that I was incredibly impressed with the professionalism and with the quality of what you were producing for our island youth. And so I think that really speaks to providing me the belief in your capacity to taking on this film industry, this Guam Film Office. And it was really important, as the speaker has noted, to receive so much support and from such a wide spectrum within the industry. I think one of the most important was hearing that GITA provides their support. The film office has been with GITA so that they see potential in handing it over to PBS. I think it speaks volumes. And it's also very encouraging to hear that they are offering to continue to work with Guam PBS in their capacity so that together both of you can be working towards its success. And they actually are so supportive that they encourage the members of our legislature to please pass the bill. Then, as the speaker mentioned from the University of Hawaii, I thought it was especially important to note that he sees the economic goals that we've talked about, diversifying the economy, adding $15 to $30 million to our economy, which is so important in these times, to be thinking about how we're adding to our economy in ways, as has been pointed out by Don Munya, that we're dealing with intellectual property here. We're not dealing with something that's potentially destructive or impeding or burdening our community in some way, but actually is creating a lot of potential opportunities. And so this associate dean out of the University of Hawaii has said that he assesses this to be highly achievable economic goals. So I thought that was very important. As the speaker mentioned, we offer some things that maybe not everybody else does, such as our hospitality, and it's things like that that can really make a difference in an industry like this, that if they have a positive experience and they've experienced something here maybe like nowhere else, it will draw them back. Also, another Gabriel Kelly mentioned that he's already seen strong interest from various countries, so that really speaks again to the possibilities, that this is not just something that we're hoping for, but we know actually exists, that there is a strong interest in working here on Guam. Another that stood out was it being an opportunity to help us with our cultural preservation. In this modern changing world, cultural preservation is so important. It's at the core of Chamorro cultural identity to be able to understand and be transmitting to each generation that which makes Chamorros uniquely Chamorro in the world. Also, as Don pointed out, that this is an opportunity by having local entities involved for authentic representation. This has been of great, great concern to all of us that what is being represented is actually authentic. And this is an excellent way to be better ensuring that by having this office be activated and situated with PBS. And then again, from GIF, they mentioned that it's a way to keep some of our island youth, our island professionals, an ability to stay here, to actually make a living in a craft that they love, but to not have to leave to California or Japan or elsewhere to pursue that. And so those were some of the ones that I wanted to highlight, just to reiterate those. So I have just a couple of questions. I'd like to ask any of the panelists there, do you see any recommendations for strengthening this bill before we move it out of committee and propose to put it on the floor?
I do not have any comments to improve it, but from my understanding, you know, the goal is to be able to get to a point where we're able to fully invest our attention to the rules and regulations, the mechanisms that are going to be able to regulate our cultural commodifications, workforce priorities, and making sure that we, you know, gain the expertise before we start drafting the rules and regulations. So in terms of this bill, it simply is just to appropriate funds, from my understanding, and move the oversight to a place that already is professionals in that industry. But short form answer, no, I don't. I think it's ready to go.
Situus Masi for that. It's important to hear that feedback because the original bill was written some time ago, and as we know, industries can really change rapidly. So to have that input, and of course there's still time to provide input if you think of something along the way that you think would strengthen the bill, that something in technology or the evolution of the industry should be added in. We would welcome the opportunity to add that in before we finalize it as a bill. One of the things, as I was reading through it, it seemed to cover the potential of the film industry coming out here quite well. I don't know that it really has come up that people come out here solely to create a commercial, but do you feel that those who would be creating commercials either with their project or perhaps independently at some point, if that language is covered in the bill?
Could you clarify? Like, what do you mean exactly?
It just occurred to me, I have seen some commercials that are produced on Guam. Of course, we produce them locally, but for off-island people to be viewing as well. So just wanting to make sure, and then perhaps if you could just give it a once-over to make sure that that covers that as well, because it talked about the film industry and creating certain types of films. I don't know, like I said, that there's ever been a situation where anybody's come over here solely to create some commercials, but I just want to make sure that if there's any gaps like that, that we cover them in the bill. So if you could just read through that and see if it needs any attention at all, or if it's sufficiently covered, I think
Absolutely.
that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
The other part that I had a question about was the identification of small crews being 5 members or less, and them being accepted from some of the rules and regulations or requirements. Do you have any comments about whether that we should be making certain exceptions for those crews that are 5 and under?
Well, I think that the point of being able to regulate is also to give incentive for crews. And so small crews normally don't make that much of an impact, depending on the scale of the production. So again, we would have to kind of fine comb through this before everything is finalized, but I feel that it's quite fair to be able to have more of an encouraging and tax incentive type of approach, more incentive-based approach rather than a regulated approach. So that way we are more inviting to new filmmakers. So I think for small crews being exempt, I believe that is somewhat fair. And the reason why I think of it that way is because back when my brother and I created our film, we were a small crew of 5 or less. And if those laws were there regulating or preventing us from creating a small film, then we wouldn't be here. So I feel that it's only fair that small crews or local crews are exempt to a certain extent. However, they should be able to register or request for the right permitting so we are able to have the proper measures of the film activity. And I think that's the most important, is to be able to quantify the activity that's going on in the industry.
Seduas Masi for that. It's important for me to be able to hear from somebody who has experience in the industry. My experience has been very, very light. So I was just thinking that with the way that things seem to be developing is that with the advances in technology, crews can be lighter and leaner. And so I remember, like for the Festival of Pacific Arts, running across some groups that were just a crew of 2. And so with them being from the outside, locals, of course, are exempted, I believe, in many ways here, because we are here to encourage and support our own industry, and then be here to encourage and support those that are coming in. But we also want to be maybe capturing them if it's becoming lighter or leaner. So it's good to hear your perspective. I'm not sure what a crew number typically is, so that was a bit beyond me. But also, if you could continue to think about that as it applies to outside crews, not to discourage them in any way, but if they are indeed coming here in groups of 2, maybe to at least make sure there's some sort of connection. I think as much connection as possible is a good thing as they continue to, maybe they're dealing with something that's very culturally relevant. And so them stepping in like that crew of 2 that was dealing with the Festival of Pacific Arts, it would be a very good opportunity that even though there's a small crew, to be checking in with you and then maybe get some cultural guidance. So if as you're looking through things, you could just think about that as well. And then just to mention, we talked about it in a meeting, but just to kind of throw it out there so that we continue to think about this, is there can be, for all of our good intentions and purposes, some gaps that happen, both unintentionally, but I've also seen it intentionally. When I was in Palau visiting there for their Festival of Pacific Arts, I did hear of a crew that came from elsewhere, and they it seemed to me from their conversation, they very intentionally were working around the system that Palau had set up. And to me, that didn't feel right. Yeah. So, and I don't know to what degree that happens here, or could have the potential of happening here. So one of the things that might help out is just reaching out to those at the airport in customs. I'm not sure, but maybe the speaker knows who it is that actually creates those customs forms. But having something there on the custom form, having the custom officers be alert, because usually you can see that film industry equipment coming in, unless, again, they're traveling light. But to try to capture a crew that might be trying to come in and intentionally or unintentionally be working around the system. But those are all my comments and questions. I'll pass it on to the speaker.
Situ Asmasi, Madam Chair, just to bring some history and perspective as the original author of the film office many years ago, I just want to say that working closely with the nonprofit organization GIMCA, and I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize their work from Mr. Duenas on Justin and the many men who volunteered a lot of their time. They don't get paid for being a part of that. Again, it was a very small nonprofit organization who's been around for over 2 decades, shared that one of the reasons we wanted to work as a part of a 5 crew list was to bring true entrepreneurship to the local community, and making sure, because a lot of startup groups do not have the funds and resources readily available when they're starting out. So again, based on the existing draft proposals for the rules and regs, that will probably continue to be further looked into. But I want to state here, and to those that are here, this film industry literally has been talked about since the late Speaker Ben Pangilinan was the administrator working closely with the late Governor Ricky Berdalio back even before the during the 1980s. So I want to say that I know it's 2019 today, but it's about not giving up. And it's about building upon what we have today. And even if it's a little, in order for us to become successful, I truly believe in a saying that my dad always impressed upon him: build it and they will come. And that's something he took from a very, very successful man, is literally having to build the infrastructure and getting it off the ground. If we do it in bits and pieces, we will never become successful. We need the infrastructure, and we know that the house that we are going to turn this industry to is one that will put it in the priority, I like to say from their hearts, that the team is ready and willing to accept that. And through the process of moving this forward, they said they're available. Again, it'll probably be one of the most unique and maybe the only place where this industry will be a part of PBS, but ever more so, it doesn't hurt to try from someone who has the heart to move it forward, and that's where we're at today. But Madam Chair, I want to say thank you. I want to say, as we look at those opportunities, based on all the input that has been provided today, and even some of the critique that was provided with us having to work for or from the government of Guam, we need this industry greatly. We've seen the successes. We've heard from the expertise from around the world that this is an industry that could bring millions, if not billions, but we have to build it. And that's why I thank you for your support, for your co-authorship, but more importantly is to see this industry start. And those rules and regulations need to come back to this August body, and it's been a long time coming and waiting. So I want to thank PBS for being here. I want to thank both you, Mr. Don and Mr. Kell, and for the family support, for taking the time all these years with GIMCA and just trying your very best to bring the experts that are here and to build upon them, because I know that we have a lot of people who have the desire to learn, to grow, but to be a part of this industry. The schools, the collaboration that the schools have, the competitions, but you guys continue to bring it to the forefront, and we need that more. We needed that yesterday. So thank you for being a part of this process and taking the step to be in front of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sainamaasi, Speaker. Is there anyone who has not yet testified who wishes to testify? There being none, the committee will conclude the public hearing for Bill number 152-35 COR, an act to repeal Article 4 of Chapter 50, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, to add a new Article 2 and a new Section 3103H, both to Chapter 3, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to establishing the Guam Film Office under the Guam Educational Telecommunications Corporation, also known as Guam PBS. The committee will continue to receive testimonies for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagåtña Revitalization, Self-Determination, and Regional Affairs, and submit it via email to office.senatorkelly@guamlegislature.org, or you may deliver it or have it sent to us in physical form to the second floor of the Guam Congress Building. If you wish to mail it, our address is 163 Chalan Santo Papa, Hagåtña, Guam 96910. Suzus Masi to everyone for your attendance today and participation in today's public hearing. Our public hearing is now ended, and it is 9:48. No, wait, 9:53. It's 9:53. Have a good day.